everyone, and welcome to the Priceless Podcast. One thing I realized is that last time I didn't even introduce myself, and I'm so sorry. My name is Michael Sechen, and as you realized, I'm the host of this podcast. I myself identify myself as gay, but we are not here to talk about myself, although I promise that I will also sometimes say some things about myself. And who knows, maybe we'll get someone who does an interview with me. So today we have a new guest. It's a very, very good friend of mine, and I'm so happy to have her with me. We first met in Vilnius. We actually just met all over the place and never at the places where we live. Well, once I was close to you.
You came
anyway.
to Warsaw, yeah.
Yeah. So the first time we met each other, what happened was just a click, and we became good friends. And there was a third person that we say hello to if she watches this.
Hi,
Judith. So we were called the Three Queens. No, I'm just joking. But we met through the European Forum. As you noticed, I'm mentioning the European Forum again, and I will mention it probably a lot of times because many people I met there will be guests on this podcast. So one thing we had together was lots of fun. We laughed a lot, but we also talked and had really, really nice conversations. Her favorite quote is, "I'm so good, I don't have to brag." And I totally agree because she is so good. She doesn't have to brag, so I'm bragging about her because she's my friend. And why I asked her to be my guest is because she's coming. Well, she didn't really come. She's still there. She's all the way in Poland. And thanks to Zoom, we can talk to each other and record each other, and you can see us too. So her name is Ola Górska.
That's
right. Did
right.
I say it right? Yay!
You said it perfectly.
I'm so glad. But let's go to Ola and ask her, would you like to add anything about yourself? Hello, Ola, and welcome.
Hello, Michael. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone listening and watching. I suppose I need to add that I am a queer Christian, right? So I think this is the reason why I'm being interviewed, not just because we are good friends.
You're queer. If I knew that, I don't know if I would have invited you.
I know.
Okay, thank you so much. And you will find out about Ola more during this interview. But before we go on, I just want to say that, of course, that you can visit our webpage. The link is in the podcast description, both podcast, audio and video. So you can visit our webpage and find all the links of some things that we might mention during this interview. I'm certain that we will mention some things. So please visit our webpage. There you can also find other podcasts. For now, there is one more, but there is more to come. And I'm happy and looking forward to other guests that I will have. But let's not talk about other guests because we have a very important guest with us today. So let's go back to you, Ola, with a question. When you say queer, how do you identify yourself, your gender, sexual orientation?
Okay, so yes, I like to use the word queer to identify myself because it's kind of all-encompassing. And to me, I know that other people see this word differently. So I suppose I identify as, I think, a gender-fluid person. And pansexual, demisexual.
Okay, some words that are quite interesting, and some of our viewers and listeners maybe don't really know what this means. Can you shortly explain what you mean with pansexual and demisexual?
Okay, so to me, pansexual means that I can be attracted to whole spectrum of not really identities, but of ways that people present. And so, and it's kind of, in my case, it is connected to my demisexuality in the sense. So I'm going to explain what demisexual means. Demisexual is kind of between asexual and sexual, so to speak. So, and basically what it means is that you only are attracted to people with whom you have a very deep emotional connection. So, and this is, so you can, in my case, when this connection is created, it doesn't matter the gender of the person with whom the connection exists, right?
Yeah.
So this is how these two things are connected.
Yeah. So if I understand right, sexual sex and gender expression is just, it doesn't matter. You're just drawn to the person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people basically, a lot of people who identify as pansexual talk about being drawn to someone's energy rather than their gender expression. Yeah.
Okay, so one thing we talk about here is actually also faith, and you already said that you're a queer person of faith. So when we talk about faith, how do you identify there? Or also talk a little bit about your background and where you are now.
I proudly identify as a queer Catholic, and I really kind of like it because, it's not just my kind of gender, sexual identity that is queer. My Catholicism is kind of queer as well,
You're all queer.
I'm all queer all the time. So I'm a Roman Catholic. Kind of by birth, and these days I identify as a Roman Catholic with a broken heart, or a still Roman Catholic, right? Because the past couple of months have been extremely difficult for independently thinking Catholics in Poland. But I've been brought up in a Roman Catholic family, and Roman Catholicism is the majority religion in Poland, actually.
Something is really touching me or doing something with me, like just hearing these words, how you put it, like a Roman Catholic with a broken heart. I don't know, it's doing something with me, so thank you for sharing that. Where are you with your faith right now in this moment?
This is a very personal question. But
is it okay for you to answer?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
I think I'm doing quite well at the moment, in the sense that I feel like my relationship with God is well established. So the external bullshit doesn't really affect it, right? So the things happening in Poland definitely do not affect my faith. They don't really affect my prayer life in any way, apart from me just having to work through a lot of anger. And, anger is perfectly okay, but if you've been brought up, definitely if you've been brought up Catholic, but perhaps if you've been brought up Christian, you may have a problem with anger, right?
Yeah. But I would like to say one thing that I always taught people who were parts of the trainings I did, because for you who don't know, I'm a trainer for nonviolent communication. And I always told people that anger is an excellent fuel. But the question is what I do with the anger. It's anger is like gas that you put in a car. You can use it to put it in the car and drive and get somewhere, or you can pour it over something and light it and put it on fire. So the question is, what are we going to do with the anger?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think additionally, since it's even kind of less acceptable for women to express anger, I think we are brought up to kind of place this anger, or rather direct it at ourselves. And there is a lot of work to be done. And then when you think about who's making you do the work, you get even more angry. So as far just to come back to your question,
you're getting all holy right now.
Right?
Yeah.
So I need to say something really smart.
You're just lighting up, shining. You're shining.
Yeah. So okay. So I am going to get all kind of high here, but I have to talk a little bit about kind of my philosophy. And about my outlook on religion. So kind of a fundamental realization for me, and this is connected with me realizing that I'm queer and deciding to accept this as something that's just a part of me and how I was created, and something that informs who I am rather than something that I should fight against or pray away or what have you. And so the fundamental belief for me is that if we believe in a God who loved us into existence, right, and this God is almighty, all-powerful, right, and this God is your creator, and this God, and we believe, and this is what I have been taught, that this God wants a relationship with us, right, wants to interact with us, then, what do we have to offer? What do we have to offer in a relationship with someone who's all-powerful, almighty, knows everything, has been there always, right? We only have one thing to offer, right? We only have ourselves. And this is why we need to be radically honest in this relationship. And I think as far as spiritual life goes, to me, that's the only thing that's worth putting our energy into, towards working through things so that you can be honest with yourself, so that you can be honest with God. And if you're honest with God, you start to believe that the relationship is real, And if the relationship is real, all the other stuff, all the religiosity, it just not even secondary, It just doesn't matter. So,
Honesty.
Radical honesty. So, So anyway, so it doesn't, as I say, doesn't really affect my faith, right? In God, definitely not. It does make my faith in the church falter, because I know that God does not need the church. We need the church, and when your bishops behave as though you needed them more than they need you, which is completely upside down. I'm sure that everything will be fine. I'm just not sure that this everything will be fine includes our bishops still being bishops of the Catholic Church. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about your journey of self-discovery. You said you're a Roman Catholic from the very beginning. So in my personal experience and some stories that I heard from other people, it was a rather interesting journey, the journey of self-discovery and also reconciling it with the faith. How did that work for you?
Well, at the beginning, it really didn't, Yeah, there was... there was a lot of suffering, right? And the way that I I kind of always knew that I'm not, now I would say heteronormative, that I don't conform to heteronormative norms.
Yeah,
but
it probably didn't have a name at that time.
No, yeah. I mean, I remember that I basically was a boy when I was 13, I just decided I'm a boy, and I just was a boy until I was, I don't know, at some point I just stopped caring about it either way, to be honest. And then I fell in love with a very, very close friend of mine when I was, I think, something like 20. And the way that I experienced this love was just, it was just an all-consuming thing. I can't even say it was a feeling, because it was just so much more powerful than anything I have ever experienced. And it was just impossible not to treat it seriously, It was impossible to just say, it's a same-sex attraction. I didn't feel attraction, right? I mean, I would still, I still struggle to call it attraction, because to me, attraction sounds like craving a bit, like something like, I would love a piece of chocolate and I know it's bad for me, but, or whatever, Yeah. And it's, it's like, chocolate is not really bad for you, and it's perfectly okay to be attracted to people, right? So it feels really nice to be attracted to people, and sometimes I am attracted to people, but I definitely differentiated from just feeling this super deep connection with someone, and the kind of connection that has to be expressed physically. So this is just a distinction that I make for myself, and I by no means want to say that there is anything kind of bad about, just being attracted to people. As I said, it's great. We have our bodies and our minds for a reason, and one of the reasons is to seek out connection, and connection can take many forms. I'm just talking about my individual experience. And it's important for me to kind of put it on record, so to speak, because...
Literally?
Literally. Because when I kind of realized that this, sleeping with my, at that point, girlfriend was... in opposition to my declared values, I think it took me like a week, right, to realize that, the fact that we are sleeping together or actually having sex is not something that my church would condone. So, I may seem smart at times, but I'm not that smart, a whole week. So anyway, but then, I tried to seek some kind of spiritual counsel, and I basically got told that this is just, this is a phase, this is an effect of me being afraid of men. This is something that this is not serious in any way, should not be treated seriously. This is something to be dismissed. And I think this is the biggest mistake that people who wanted to give me, one particular priest, but also, I was trying to look for some kind of guidance in books and online. And basically, the message of this is not something real and this is something to be dismissed. I think this kind of helped me to never really buy into this whole conversion therapy thing, because when you're faced with facts and somebody is trying to tell you, no, it's just it's just an illusion, you're not really seeing what you think you're seeing, you're not feeling what you think you're feeling. It just there is this choice of putting your vision of reality on someone else or just trusting yourself, right? But
I wanted to ask you, how difficult was it? You talked about being pansexual and demisexual. How do you think was it different? How did this affect your whole self-discovery? I mean, I'm really asking as someone very naive, it's just maybe in my mind that it sounds easier to find out or discover your own sexuality if you have this, like we have our hormones and the hormones go wild and you just see who you are immediately attracted to. So how was this for you, this part to discover yourself? What role did it play, if any?
It's really difficult to answer this question because, I only have my own experience, right?
Yes.
So,
Question dismissed.
No, I think, I think if it was just, maybe if it was something like, oh, I'm really attracted to that girl, it would be easier to just say, okay, so I have a same-sex attraction, and there are materials online that will tell you how this is just a phase, you will grow out of it, or you can pray it away and stuff like that, right? So I should basically say the same thing that Tanya said in your first English speaking podcast, that I'm thank God that I was demisexual, because when I experienced when I fell in love with my girlfriend, it was really difficult to dismiss it. It was really, really difficult to say, no, this is just something that should, it will pass. Now I'm much, much, much older and I know that everything will pass. but
some
I
things
think
won't.
Everything in this life, let's say.
You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of really quickly just say two sentences. So I continue to go to church, pretend not to listen, and it took the whole 3 years when I was together with my girlfriend. And then when we broke up, I basically said, okay, so let's try being heterosexual for a while. And it didn't work out. And so one thing that I kind of took away from that experience was that I never, ever, ever, ever want to feel like that ever again. So I never want to, just stand at the end of the, be in church, but stand at the end of, everybody else, behind everybody else, and just kind of try to not really listen. If I'm going to be there, I just really want to be there, right? And
Good. What about your parents, your family, your whole coming out journey? How was that experience for you?
Well, I think for me, this is kind of the reason why it makes sense to make such podcasts and really kind of put all our journeys or our experiences out there in the diversity that they represent, because it was for me it was just basically really horrible because I didn't come out to my family, right? So the whole time we were together, I never came out because it was just so difficult to process. And my parents, basically my whole family, really loved my girlfriend, and she spent holidays and and summer vacations with us. And I just thought, okay, if I tell them, they will be angry at her, maybe, So I don't want to ruin their relationship. And
I'm sorry for getting in, but this is just making me so sad when you think about it. When you just think about if someone would have a boy has a girlfriend and the family loves her, and that your family will just be thrilled that you're together. Yeah.
So when I eventually came out to my family, and I was for a long time I didn't feel the need to come out to anyone really, because I just was, I have this joke, that I would have to have this conversation with my mom and tell her, something like, Mom, you know how I don't have a boyfriend? Well, I need to inform you that I also don't have a girlfriend, So, because, maybe if I were, homosexual, it would be kind of a more pronounced feature of my identity, so to speak. But when you're demisexual, so you kind of only are attracted to the people you are attracted to, right? I mean, only a very small section of the society, right? Then it just kind of like, I have no idea who I am going to like next, so to speak, right? But at some point I realized that part of it was really rationalization, and that it is a part of my identity, and it is important for people who are very close to me to know about me. So it's not just a matter of who you hang out with and who you're having sex with. It is so much more. So basically, at some point, not that long ago, I came out first to my brothers and then to my mom. And basically, my brother's only reaction was, we wish we knew, so that we could be with you when when you broke up and you were really suffering, because everybody saw that I was suffering. I just couldn't tell anyone why.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And my mom basically, just told me, I thought everybody felt that way, So,
what do you mean by she thought that everyone felt that way?
Well, when I tried to explain to her what it meant to be gender fluid, for example, and I said, some days I just feel more like a man. And my mom was just like, doesn't everybody feel that way?
So was that your mom coming out to you at the same time, or?
I wondered that. Yeah. It's actually, I think it's kind of connected to another issue, how important these labels are. Because I think, demisexual and gender fluid people, I'm certain were here before our generation, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, I'm sure there was a lot of suffering connected with the fact that there were no words for it, for example, and that a lot of time you were not able to kind of live your truth. But I also think that I suppose it is likely that some people were able to kind of create little, universes of their own. And create the chosen families and live in kind of non-heteronormative relationships, right? Without really putting a label on it, right? So
Yeah, I can see how much labels help us to kind of talk about a certain topic. At the same time, it worries me how much these labels became important nowadays. You know, it seems sometimes that labels are more important than, you know, who is behind this label.
The actual experience.
Yes, and I think that, you know, when someone asks me or tells me, I have nothing about LGBT people, but why do you have to talk about it all the time? And I say, you know, I don't really want to talk about it all the time. I would be happy to be just who I am, but there are so many parts of our lives that are affected and where we just come to a problem where we are not accepted, you know, when you talk about just coming home to your parents with your partner, or going to the hospital, or, you know, if your partner gets sick and taking care of some things. You know, there are so many issues and just kind of walls that we hit that there is no other possibility for us than to talk about it and the problems, and that's the reason why we have to label it. But at the same time, I think it's so important to keep in mind that it's different for every person. It's just different, and you know, pansexual and demisexual, what it means for you, it doesn't have to mean the same thing for someone else who identifies like that. And there is no, I think that's in everything. I think that we became too reliant on labels, and when we say something we think, oh, I know what that is, but we are talking about people. Yeah,
absolutely.
Sorry for that interruption, but I also like to talk, as you can see. You wanted to say something? Did you want to add something?
I was just thinking about what you said, and yes, and sometimes it's not even as dramatic as going to the hospital or you know, or visiting your parents or anything like that. Recently, I'm kind of, you know, I'm out in this way that people who matter know, and then I'm kind of I try to discern when it makes sense to include it in a conversation and when it doesn't, right? And not in the way that I don't really feel like I owe anyone an explanation, because I don't really expect other people to explain themselves to me. But, you know, like I joined this new team at work, and there is this one guy who always tells us stories about, you know, whenever we talk about our lives in the past, he would say things like he was discussing his relationship with his dad, but he mentioned, you know, whenever I would have a girlfriend, this and this would happen, right? And this is what heteronormative people do all the time, right? Yes. And at some point in our conversation, we're talking about how, you know, sometimes some people like to cook but don't like to clean, and he was mentioning that he and his wife are like that, and he cooks and his wife is quite happy to clean, since he makes such nice meals. And that was exactly the same with my girlfriend and I all these years ago. And I was just like, I wanted to say something, but it wouldn't be the same, you know, like as far as the level of disclosure, you know. When he says, this is what my wife does, and I would say, oh, this is what my girlfriend used to do, these are completely two different pieces of information, right? So it's not that I want to...
I loved what one gay man said from I think he was from Ireland or Northern Ireland, I'm not sure anymore, but he said, you know, I don't want to be a political statement all the time.
Exactly.
And that's the problem that we are, you know, whatever I say is perceived and heard as a political statement, and, you know, I just want to be relaxed like any other person and say I just while we were talking, I thought about just a small thing. I'm in the store with my partner, and when we are at home, I call him love. Mm-hmm. So when I'm in the store and I'm calling him because he's a little bit further away, I have to be aware, we are in the store. Okay, I'm going to call him by his name. So that's just these things where we constantly have to be cautious what heteronormative people and straight people are not even thinking about, because they don't have to think about it, and they're not aware that they're doing this, and they're just being spontaneous. So I think it's this spontaneity that kind of just is lacking sometimes, many times. Always. Almost.
Exactly.
Whenever we exit our home. Yeah. So when you think about this journey of self-discovery, of reconciliation with your faith, is there anything that you can think of that really supported you on this journey, that was really helpful for you? It can be anything: people, a group, an institution, organization, book, movie, music, whatever.
Well, I think there were a couple of things. One thing is that, well, I suppose I would have to start with the fact that I mentioned to you before that I kind of always wanted to be a devout believer, right? So, so I... when we talk about grace, for example, right? This is how I interpret grace, right? I had this curiosity and this longing in me, and I was just kind of looking for a way to be devout, and I was really kind of put off by the hypocrisy of the groups that I came into contact with, as a teenager, for example, right? The kind of church groups and stuff like that. So I was lucky enough that to actually come across people who would interpret the relationship with God in a very personal way. I had this friend at my first job, who was a Roman Catholic, the kind of Roman Catholic that other people didn't believe that she's a Roman Catholic, because if you're a believer and you're happy that you have to be Protestant, kind of was the idea back then in Poland, right?
So another queer Roman Catholic.
Exactly. Yeah, a wife with 3 kids, but definitely a queer Roman Catholic. So she kind of showed me, I don't think she even realized that what I'm looking for is kind of obtainable, that you don't have to be this kind of, what's the word? Holier than thou churchgoer to be a good Christian or a good Catholic. So, and that was very important. And then I really, because I didn't really have a community, a faith community where I could pursue these ideals, I truly believe that God basically led me kind of personally. And I really see that in my life now, that through times where I didn't have anyone to ask for spiritual guidance, I would just receive it kind of directly. So you come up with a question, and then basically every article you come across on the internet answers it, right? Or I feel like for maybe 5 years, every time I would go to confession, the priest would tell me as a penance to read the Bible, right? So, and at some point, and every time it would just be like, read the Bible, read this fragment, read that fragment, open it and just read a fragment, and read the Bible. And at some point, somebody, one of these priests told me, you have this, you say that it's difficult to obtain a relationship with God, and you have this big love letter written to you in front of you, and you're not reading it. So, so what else do you want, right? So I started reading, and so I read the Bible a couple of times, right? And when I was doing it, I was just, it was a fantastic experience because it really made me feel at home in Christianity, you know, because I stopped to feel like a priest can catch me, catch me not having done my homework, if you know what I mean. That I will be caught out for not knowing something. I just really felt like, yes, I have read this letter a couple of times, so I think I have a vague idea of what's going on the one hand. And then there was this year when whenever I would basically log into the internet, everything was about Ignatian spiritual exercises, right? Whatever. I was reading about this, this psychologist. I was reading about this writer, and they all mentioned, this, Ignatian, Ignatius of Loyola spiritual exercises. So I tried that, and basically that changed my life, right? So when I discovered a way of praying that would feed me, I knew that I'll be fine, and it's been still, it's been a rough journey at times, but it was very much worth it. And just to, I will try to be really quick, but there were also books, right? There were also books through all of this. As I said, I really feel like these books were kind of given to me through people in my life, books that changed my life. So I'll be, that's basically, you can't go wrong reading anything but by Scott M. Peck, but The Road Less Traveled is definitely a book worth reading. Another author that's really worth looking into, especially if you're a Catholic, but not only, is Ronald Roelheiser, and I'll be more than happy to provide links to these.
Yes. I think it would be great for our viewers and listeners to have links to these books that helped you on your journey, because it might help someone else. And another thing I'm going to ask you, if you just have a great link about, what was that? Ignatius, how is it called? I don't know the English name, like the Croatian name is coming to my mind. This contemplative practice by Ignatius. In Polish they are called spiritual exercises simply. Right. If you have a great link just for people to kind of see what it is, I think it would be great for people to have an opportunity to look into it.
And I'm currently very disappointed in Jesuits, because I recently heard that the ones in Wrocław were collecting signatures under a civic bill proposal to ban pride marches, which is extremely disappointing when you take into account that they either have to study. They all study theology, and then they have to choose between philosophy and psychology. So a lot of them are at least, have a master's in psychology. So they should know better, simply. But other than that, we have some smart Jesuits out there, like Pope Francis or James Martin, right?
So in any case, we're going to provide you with the link if any of you is interested. So be also cautioned that, you have to check if they're really LGBT friendly before you go there. Just be aware of where you're going, knowing that not everyone is still accepting. Because I know that there are many people, priests and nuns and the other people, lay people, who are very open towards LGBT people and even fighting for them. So be cautious, be not cautioned, but be aware. Of that.
It's important to discern.
Yeah. So we talked about you, and I'm looking at the time, and I would really like to also talk about the situation in Poland, because the whole situation is can I say interesting?
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah, I know.
No, I feel
know.
like I feel like this, there is this meme with this dog in a burning house, and the dog says, "This is fine," right?
Yeah, don't panic. The house is on fire.
Yeah.
So how would you describe to our viewers what it means? I know this is a very general question, but what does it mean to be LGBT right now in Poland?
Well, I think it really depends on exactly where you are, right? Because and how you look, because it can be, like mildly annoying in my case and deathly dangerous in the case of people who won't pass for heteronormative, right?
Yeah.
Basically, what happens is that the general situation in Poland with the pandemic and everything else is not great, and we've had a populist government who basically burned through any money that we had like in no time. So now, to cover it all up, they came up with this wonderful, everybody's enemy, so maybe public enemy, the LGBT ideology. And since they came up with the idea of LGBT, not people, but ideology, the church basically jumped on the bandwagon and started condemning the ideology, which, to which a lot of people protested, basically, just demonstrating with, I'm a person, not an ideology, banners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's been happening for, I think, close to a year now, or maybe even a little bit over a year. And it's just, I don't know what's more worrying, the fact that it's kind of, at best we are maybe 10% of the society, but we are made to be this, this menacing force that will, do away with everything that's truly Polish and Christian and, Catholic and all that, right?
Yeah.
And they also basically only do it for just to divert attention from their failures as government, right? And the church basically is completely in the politician's pocket, and not the church, but the hierarchy. I apologize. There's still, there's still a lot of decent people out there, absolutely.
Yeah.
And even, like a handful of decent priests, apparently, because some of them spoke out. Yeah. But even, like I think it was maybe a bit over a month ago, the bishops published a document about the LGBT matter or LGBT issue, where they basically condone reparative or conversion therapy, and basically say that people have transgender feelings, and basically, just 27 pages of being completely incompetent, willfully ignorant, and downright hurtful. And yes, and just I think yesterday we heard of a 12-year-old girl in some very small town who killed herself, and what we know is that she's been bullied for being queer, right, for not being hetero, and it's kind of, it's really, really difficult to be patient and to be smart about your strategy when the children are dying.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to see the other side as human when they are, last night somebody spray painted your LGBT child, this kind of, not a slogan, but somebody just spray painted these words, your LGBT child, on the wall of Ministry of Education. Just like. And they basically had a press conference about it, calling people who did the painting monsters, and no word of a little girl who decided to take her own life because she didn't really see another option, right?
Yeah.
So it's, it's a real test for us to still, regard these people in love, the way that the Lord sees them, right?
Yeah. How I mean, I feel really stupid asking this question after such a serious consequence of everything that is happening in Poland when you mentioned this little girl, and life is just the most extreme loss that we can have as a consequence. But if you look at everyday lives of LGBT, what would you say the consequences are right now for these people?
Well, I don't think I have one non-heteronormative friend who doesn't suffer from chronic illness or mental issues. I myself struggle with depression. I really have to take really great care of myself not to slip into just bouts of helplessness and anxiety and sadness, right? So I don't, I'm sure there are people more resilient than me out there, but but basically you can see the long-term effects of minority stress on everyone. Basically, it's just a matter of how long you need to talk to someone before they mention it to you. Pretty much. So this is, these things have tangible real life consequences, right? So it is a struggle to not give in to hate.
What do people do? Like, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand. I mean, I hear this psychological consequences, which I can very much relate to, and how hard it is to endure this minority stress. What are you afraid of? Like, what is the biggest fear? What's happening to people? What do they fear that will happen to them if someone finds out?
Well, I think it's a lot of it, as far as fear goes. The option to be beaten up if you don't pass as heterosexual can be very real. And at the time of the greatest unrest, which I think was around a month ago, two of my gay friends told me completely independent conversations about, a car following them. A friend called me and he said, weird thing happened because I was going to the shop and I saw these two guys that were basically driving very slowly, and they saw me and they stopped and they just looked at me, and there is a million reasons why they could have been looking at him. He might have looked familiar or whatever, right? But at that time we're in such a state that, you know, it was violence was the first thing that came to mind, right?
Yeah.
And then on almost the same day, I was talking to another friend of mine, and I was taking a walk and he was taking a walk, because, you know, we're in different parts of Poland, but we had a walk together. And he said, this car has just passed me for the 4th time. And there are 4 young guys in it, you know. And I'm sure that they just got lost, right? But what if they didn't?
Yeah.
You know? And so that's the fear, I guess. But generally, you know, this whole situation makes it so that you feel like it's completely unacceptable for you to be the way you are, you know, that people really shouldn't find out, because you have no idea what will happen. So, you know, there's a lot of talk from you know, open-minded people and people who are pro-change, that, you know, the best way to counter a stereotype is to actually meet or to get over a stereotype, is to meet the person you're prejudiced against, to see that they are just, you know, human, just like you. They have better and worse days. They want to love. They want to be happy. They have the same basic needs, right? Yeah. But the situation in Poland right now, and this breaks my heart that church played such a crucial part in it. The situation in Poland right now makes it basically impossible to come out in most parts of Poland, right? So these people who are against us without knowing us will not overcome their prejudice, because we won't come out only to, you know, because we're just too afraid, right? Yeah. Why should someone risk their life so that somebody can change their mind? Yeah. You know? Yeah, their livelihood, etc. And let's not forget the fact that we, as you mentioned earlier on, right? We do the emotional work every day, and we have a right to be tired. You know, every time you don't say, "Oh, my girl," you know, you don't say, "Oh, my boyfriend did this," or you don't call your boyfriend with his pet name when you're in public. Every time you're doing a little bit of emotional work, right? So you do, you know, we do have a right to be tired, and it is taking its toll.
Yeah, what I hear, there is a lot of fear, and it's just like pushing you back into the closets. And
exactly.
Yeah, as someone said, closets are not for people, they're for clothes. Yeah, and I agree. So there is this whole issue of what I heard, and I was just wondering, what the heck is that? And that's the LGBT free zones. Can you say a few words about this? I know it's maybe complicated, but what is this all about?
I really don't know. I mean, okay, so I will tell you the facts as I know them, but it's really difficult to put it as kind of separated from my interpretation or opinion of it. Yeah. But generally, you know, since they came up with this idea that it's LGBT ideology, you know, not people. We, of course, we love people. Of course, you know, we respect people, right?
Yeah.
But the ideology, this needs to be obliterated, you know, put away forever, you know, just basically burnt out from our holy land of Poland, you know. And I couldn't explain to you why this happened, but, you know, it's in some totally weird move and some totally weird for me desire to kind of, I don't know, kiss up to the church and the government. Some communes, I think the correct English term is commune, but not like, you know, people living together, but like it's an administrative kind of division, right? So a couple of some places in Poland decided that, you know, they will fight against popularizing LGBT ideology in their in their commune or in their administrative district, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I don't know, maybe they hope that because the ruling party is doing a great job of taking away power and money from local governments, right? So I think maybe it was a move to kiss up to the ruling party so that, your district or your town will not, will get more money because you are a LGBT ideology free zone, and not some other district or whatever because they are not. And I'm really, really happy that it really kind of backfired, because that now they such districts and such towns and such communes cannot get EU money, and there are these Norwegian funds, or I don't really know the English name for of it, but these have also been stopped for the LGBT free zones. So, and I know that a couple of towns in brother or sister towns in Germany and in the Netherlands, basically broke ties with sister or brother towns in Poland because these towns are LGBT free zones. So I really, I have to say I really enjoy the backlash, right? Because they thought that they will gain some capital, political capital from picking up on the kind of least represented and the weakest section of the society, and it kind of backfired. So that gives me a little bit of a satisfaction, even if the satisfaction is not very kind of Christian.
Yeah, well, we're only human, and it's okay to be human.
And as I said, I need to be radically honest.
Yes, and you are loved. You are loved.
Hopefully. The stupid people are loved as well, and this is something that I try to remember, that they are loved as well, and they can still repent, hopefully.
I'm so glad, because I would never be loved. Well, let's not talk about my stupidity. Let's go on with our
You have to make everything about yourself, but
that's my biggest quality. I just know how to make things about myself. So, yes.
Right. But you know who I meant by stupid people.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm just joking. I don't really think that I'm stupid. Well, there are moments, as I said, we're only humans, so there are moments and there are days and days. So very often what happens when something like this is happening, people are wondering, what can I do? How can I help? And they want to do something. So what would you tell those people? I'm right now I'm probably thinking mostly of the people who are outside of Poland.
Okay, so if you can spare a prayer, definitely prayer is always welcome. And, God tells us no prayer falls to the ground. So even if you're not kind of praying for the correct thing, a good thing will come out of it. Because I'm sure a lot of people are praying for us to convert, for us to repent, but we won't because we're right. So definitely prayer. And if you don't pray, good thoughts are also appreciated. And taking an interest, I know that there's been a demonstration in the Netherlands and in Hungary in solidarity with Poland when things were kind of the most violent. There was a moment in August when it really got very bad, and this kind of support is really appreciated. But it doesn't have to be a demonstration. If you have a friend in Poland who's who's LGBTQI plus, right? Reach out to them, but not to lecture them, but to, to just say, okay, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? That's always appreciated, always appreciated. And at the same time, I know I'm going to sound super ungrateful, but this is maybe, when somebody is just so completely downtrodden, maybe this is not the best time to give them advice or to ask, make demands on them, right? So, we've had very well-intentioned people telling us, translate this, translate that, and for example, it would really help us to have the document published by bishops translated, because then people outside of Poland who would speak to it. And I have to say that also people in Catholics in Germany spoke out against this document. They kind of obtained their own translation and said, okay, so Polish bishops are making claims that are basically impossible to defend within the Catholic doctrine, which was also extremely supportive. I have to say, And by the way, I need to mention that I am a part of Faith and Rainbow, a Christian LGBT plus group in Poland, and the link will be in the podcast description. We'll definitely provide the link. So. So this is a source of support, but also our contact with the outside world, and I lost my train of thought, but anyway, so these kinds of things are kind of very, very helpful. But when you think about translating a 27 pages document that basically tells you that you shouldn't exist, this is not something that people will jump on. This is not an opportunity that people will be happy to have. Yeah. I think, thank you for what you shared there. I think it's very important that we know when other people are in trouble, one thing we do is that our super savior identity comes out and we want to help right away, but often even if it's a help, and then we are shocked if the person doesn't show any gratefulness, but sometimes even something that looks to us as a great help can sometimes be the wrong thing. And I always encourage people rather to ask, what do you need? And it might be just a word, it might be just, a shoulder to cry on, but, just letting the person know, I'm here, let me know if you need anything, is much more than doing something where we can go very wrong because we think it's the right thing and maybe it's not. So, thank you for saying that. So, I actually would like to finish with one thing, and I actually don't even know if I told you that I'll ask you that, but it just came to my mind. If a fairy would come to you right now and say you have two wishes, one wish for your country and one wish for the Roman Catholic Church, what would you wish for? Sorry. I would hate someone who would ask me this question. Yeah. I think for my country, I would definitely wish for more compassion in the society, more compassion-based communication in the society, for us to just ask each other what we need and listen. And not, because it seems that the mainstream discourse at the moment is all about who's to blame. And I think we're at a point where it doesn't I feel like I know who's to blame, but I'm willing to put it aside if we could be working towards, improvement, because our society badly needs, hope and compassion and organization around looking out for each other rather than leaving people behind and just kind of having the strongest people or the most cunning or the most dishonest win. So that's for my country, and pretty much it wouldn't be so bad if the same happened in the hierarchy, in the Catholic hierarchy in my country as well, right? I have to say I have very, very little hope and very, very little faith when it comes to our bishops, because they had multiple chances to speak up and their silence is very loud. And I'm just really kind of sad about it, because it's not like we really need them. They're not vital, and to really help if they realize that. Yeah, and because I'm basically yes, I am an oppressed minority, but at the same time, I feel like they have been cautioned time and time again, and they won't repent.
Yeah.
And it's really heartbreaking to look at.
Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it was a pleasure, and I really mean that. I really enjoyed this conversation. We had this is our second conversation because we had lots of technical issues with the first recording that we tried, and I really enjoyed it. I love it. I know, dear listeners, that the podcast will be or was a little bit longer, but I hope that you managed to stick with us, because I found it really important what I heard from you, and I actually want to leave all of it in this interview, and just to be there for the people who want to be encouraged and also hear how it is to be LGBTIQ plus in another country. So thank you so much. Thank you, dear listeners, dear viewers. I am so happy about this happening and looking forward to our next time we see each other or hear each other. I'm reminding you that you can visit our webpage. The link is in the podcast description. And there you can find all the information that we mentioned, links to all the things that we mentioned here in this podcast. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Ola, once again for taking the time twice to do this. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Great. So next time we'll have a guest from the UK, and I am very much looking forward to that too, but I will leave the rest to be mysterious.
Do I know them?
Yes, you do. And maybe I'll tell you, but after I stop this recording. So thank you everyone for being here. See you soon and hear you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.